Hello viewers, and welcome again to Discovering Truth, and I am Pastor Forbes from the Gateway Abiding Word Ministries. It's not too early to wish everybody a Merry Christmas in advance, and I'm counting the next 3 weeks into a Happy New Year, a 2020 year. But we're still trying to finish 2019, and so let's do part 3 of the series I started 2 weeks ago, entitled Lest We Forget. Lest We Forget has a two-pronged intention. First, of course, is as we end the year, we need to look back and be grateful to God for His goodness to us and for all the different mercies God shows to us as individuals and certainly as a nation. But also because there are many things on the table in the Gambia right now. The table is hot, or you'll say the plate is hot. I am bringing this series our way to jolt our memories, to speak into our conscience and into our hearts as individuals, family leaders, people who have some amount of power, authority, influence, and oversight over people, people whose voices will be heard and listened to ask us all to think about where we came from that led us to where we are today. And so this series is entitled Lest We Forget. Because when you forget, you behave as if something never happened. And when you forget, there are chances are you're probably going to make the same mistake, run into the same problem, into the same error, because you seem to have developed, or rather we seem to have developed a short memory. It's what sometimes people call temporary amnesia. You have chosen to forget the difficult past, not because you always want to be going back to life, because you really cannot move forwards by looking backwards, but occasionally you have to take stock of the things and the situations and the scenarios that made our country what it became and made it so difficult for us all to live in with peace and unity and harmony. And so as a sovereign nation, it's important for starters that we do things that work for our common good. That is what our national anthem proposes, and that is what our national pledge also presupposes, that it's either for the common good or the combination of government and people working together. And government is people, because they don't fall from the sky. It's us that get elevated in a representative way to look for the aspirations and the hopes of the citizenry over a given tenure of 5 years or whatever is important and whatever is good. But while that is going on, sometimes you begin to wonder whether we are holding the reins of the national horse, or the rudder of the national ship, or the steering of the national car. Are we the ones holding it, or are we being remote controlled? Because there is a difference, fellow Gambians, between a voice and an echo. An echo sounds like a voice, but an echo is a repeat, is a repetition of a stimulus. So it is not original. It is a response. And our country, this country, my country, your country, must be a voice and not an echo of people's wishes from outside our country, even if they are international organizations. Because it's well and good for us sometimes to seem to appear to be championing international causes when people wonder whether we really know what we are doing, because what we seem to be championing is really happening inside our own backyard, in our own country. And sometimes you wonder what our motivations are and what our moral standing is for such things. And we ought to be very careful, because like you know, in life, people can sponsor you, people can make you become an agitator, people can send you to do things, and when trouble lands, they are nowhere to be found. It's only a little under 3 years ago that we were all wondering what was going to happen. Yes, we had voted. Yes, the results had been declared. But then 3 years ago, around now, we were in 6s and 7s. We weren't sure what was going to happen. But as you can see, we are by ourselves today. Yes, there may be external assistance, but when the chips are down, as we say in Wolof, it is Kumba Banjul, Samba Banjul. It's left to me and you. So we must be careful that agendas, ideologies, associations are not what we parrot and echo because they suit even what we feel would be a political or diplomatic angle, because there is nothing bad and as worse as you are trying to correct something that you are wrong in. A scripture that comes to my heart is in the New Testament book of 2 Corinthians, like Corinth, Greece, 2 Corinthians, that is 1st and 2nd. 2 Corinthians in the 10th chapter and verse 3, 4, 5, and 6. But it ends like this. It says, always being in readiness to avenge that which is wrong, but when you are doing what is right. Being ready to avenge wrong when you are right, not when you are all so wrong. So we should be careful that things that people will make us do, make us become a part of, that will not help us. But ladies and gentlemen, I think I want to land my ship today on religion. I believe it was Karl Marx that said religion is the opium. It's like a drug. It's the tie. It's the kubejara. Religion is the opium of the masses. It's something that can be given to them as a drug, and they behave without thinking. They behave without analyzing. They behave without forethought and insight and depth of comprehension. They just move in mob mentality or sometimes mass psychology. And so, as from Karl Marx's observation, he said religion is the opium of the masses. And ladies and gentlemen, the truth is where we are today as our country. Religion brought us here. If you cast your mind back 22, 23, 24 years ago, there was nothing about financial accountability. Money was supposed to be in the name of God, the bank of Allah. That's religion. And as you went down, all the things that have caused disquiet, from religious buildings in secular institutions, markings on the wall, and the involvement in sponsoring people to whether it's Jerusalem or Mecca, religion brought us to where we are. And ladies and gentlemen, Christmas is just 15 days away, at least Christmas Day. Last year we celebrated Christmas like never before after many, many, many years. Because prior to 2015, when we had another religious problem, a unilateral declaration, and if I go down the line from the TRRC, from the rape cases, it's all religion, 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 religion. And so it becomes the opium. So it makes people see black and they call it white. It makes people see green and they say green doesn't exist. And so, and we all know the truth. The truth, ladies and gentlemen, is that should it become possible one day that our ex-president sits down and decides to speak the truth and tell his story and write a book, how many names, how many religious institutions, how many people we've held in high esteem, how many caliphs, how many people will go down? Again, it was religious based. Everything that we suffered through, a dear lady that said while she was being sodomized, the call to prayer was going on. Religion. And if she wants to come out to fight it, people will say religion. Ndogali yala, na intem don't fit, na waiting God see. So religion has brought us here. Now, let me quickly say that there's a difference between religion and a relationship. And I will come to that as we get closer into maybe part 4. And so it's important for us as a country to ask ourselves, why are we here? What is the reason behind And I don't think it's a democratic experience before I even answer the question. But what is the reason behind almost every 7 days in our nation, something goes wrong? It's like you lose count. And it's like you can't even catch up. If it's not immorality, if it's illegality, it's abuse, it's death, it's violence, it's so many things. Why? In a seemingly democratic environment, the time when these things should not even happen, where our before and our after should make us be clapping so much for our after. And yes, there is some amount of freedom to express what we want to say, but we must not use that as a flag. We can be better. We should be better. We must be better. We deserve better as a country. Just a few days ago, we lamented 58 or thereabout, more than 50 of our young people dying in the waters. This was something we thought was just happening because of the repression of the regime that was voted out of power and ushered us into the new Gambia and a democratic setting. Why is it that that scenario is still continuing? And the mean age, the average age is even lower than it was before. The number of young girls has increased than before. And yet we are not at war. And as we popularly say, we do not have a dictator. So why are we here? Ladies and gentlemen, rape cases. Ladies cannot even take taxis now, except maybe in 2s or 3s, and maybe they have to start wearing leotards. And when did we get here? Now, we cannot have an ostrich mindset, mentality, and bury our head in the sand and maybe say it's opposition, it's this group, it's that group. No. It means that there is a systemic problem that is edging towards chronic malignancy, as the medical people will say. And it's not just something out of the blues. Ladies and gentlemen, for every reaction you see, there is an action. For every effect you notice, there is a cause. For every consequence, an action, something triggered it, something stimulated it, something brought it into being, and we can bravely defend it on radio programs, on press releases and all that, but until we sit down and really, truthfully tell ourselves that we are really in a bad shape as a nation, we are really not where we should be, and call for what will make it work, because as I said, I believe last week, or I said maybe in some television interview, you do not solve the problem of a bad tree by cutting its branches. They will grow up again with the infection. The problem is that you must go to the root cause. What is the reason behind these children going to die in the water? As we have been told, there were probably 4 of those boats. 2 made it through. The third one, unfortunately, we lost 58, maybe 60, maybe 50 young people. Who knows what they could have been? And another one was intercepted. What is it? These boat trips are not $10 C. They are not $25 C. They are not $1,000 C. These children are not orphans. They are not mad kids. They have parents. Now, we may vilify their parents, vilify the boat owner, we may prosecute, and maybe there is some need to do that. But beyond that, we should ask, why? Why is this happening? Because when it was happening before, we said this is the reason. Everybody's running away from victimization, from brutality, from repression. Now, why has it even increased? Why are the rape cases becoming so almost ubiquitous? Suddenly, we are known as a country that are hurling insults at each other, irrespective of age, irrespective of position, irrespective of anything. We are like people who live in glass houses throwing stones at each other. And ladies and gentlemen, when that happens and it continues, we get into that point where we almost become an ungovernable nation. And if you look around the world, you can have a country with a president, a prime minister, whatever leadership structure they have, but if they're ungovernable, it's going to be bad. Hong Kong is a far example. Guinea was an example. Sudan was an example. And you go down to North Africa, and when you go back to the bottom line, there is always a reason of one of two things: dissatisfaction and people who should listen, especially in leadership, who refuse to listen. And instead of owning up to mistakes, asking for forgiveness, apologizing, coming round the table, sometimes they throw it at, it is this political party, it is this religion, it is those women, it is those men, and that never solves the problem. Because, ladies and gentlemen, any problem that you must solve, that you cover, may look solved to you because you covered it, but it's going to explode in a way that you always say, had I known, I would have nipped it in the bud. The agricultural season, the tourist season. Why are we where we are? It's so beautiful to know that, yes, we have become a visa-free country, but was that really our plan, or was that motivated because we are trying to mitigate something? And if we're trying to mitigate that thing, have we really mitigated it by doing visa on arrival, or should there be another way that we should literally stop the engine of the car, put the engine down, and ask, what can we do? Because if our, excuse me to say, if our lack of economic progress is always going to be a function of what other people are doing outside, then our independence and sovereignty is questionable. Because if I'm an investor, I'm going to look out for my interest. And if I think I'm doing something and I'm getting no returns, or suddenly the laws say that I cannot own property for more than 30 years or something like that, I will pull out. And ladies and gentlemen, when I pull out with my money. I don't leave it behind. And even if you hold my money, the world is such a big place that I can get that money back. And sometimes in getting it, I might even be able to destroy your integrity. And then when you watch, you discover that what you tried to take from me and what you lose is not worth it. Today you can go into a restaurant or a hotel and somebody can be rude to you, a cleaner or somebody can do anything, the reception, they can shout, that's fine. All you do is you go on something called TripAdvisor. And when you write your experience, and because that's probably not going to be a one-off experience, other people have it, suddenly that restaurant, that hotel, that motel, even if it calls itself 14 stars, will discover that people are shying away from it. Why? Because of the report that went out. And so that hotel's total prosperity, progress, its ability to improve its service delivery, employ more staff and do that, has to come back into customer care, HR, human relations, human resources, and all those kinds of things. As little as they are destructive. There is a verse in the Bible from a book called Songs of Solomon, and this is what it says: catch us the little foxes, because it's the little foxes that spoil the vineyard. You have a vineyard of grapes, and you are bluffing, and you are happy, you take drone photographs, and one day you find that half of it is gone. And you really can't see what happened because they are little foxes. It's the way termites can bring a whole wooden building to the floor. And you say, this was not by military might. No, it was termites. It was locusts that did the job. It's like how a virus would work and a bacteria would work. They are not visible to the naked eye, but their effect is definitely visible to the naked eye. And so a nation that has been known for peace, for religious pluralism and tolerance, and I say that tolerance quote unquote because if we want to really weigh religious tolerance, it's not just what we see at the macro economic level, but you must also go to the micro. Just permit me using these economic terms. You know, last year there was an incident where a restaurant owner who is not a Christian opened his restaurant for Christmas, and people wanted to attack him and slash his tires. Now, when you see that, that's intolerance, that's bigotry. And if it only happens at the celebration time of one faith, then we do not have tolerance. And that brings me to the fact that any one of us, myself included, any one of us, and I say this very passionately, and I say to everybody to whom this refers, any one of us that has influence by virtue of a pulpit, it could be a local pulpit, and somebody like me, a national pulpit, anybody who has a radio program, a television program, or whose voice carries the sway, must be respectful enough, decent enough, and have the moral fiber enough to say things that unify this small nation of ours, and not say things that will destroy. Because each of us, and we may be few in this country, that have national scope and national oversight and have a national pulpit and can sway people, must understand that the reason we have that is not to cause trouble. Ladies and gentlemen, today there are issues going on secularism or no secularism, secularity and all that. And if you ask my position, it's very clear. Out of the abundance of caution, from what I just said, from the Bank of Allah to all the things that happened, to me waking up one day, Friday, I think the 14th or 15th of December 2015, and suddenly discovering that I live in an Islamic republic. If those possibilities are there, even if somebody one day is going to try to declare a Christian republic, out of the abundance of caution from what we have seen, which is what has brought us to where we are, what we have seen in other nations, what we know that you cannot solve. Ladies and gentlemen, you can have a nation that can be 10 million people and maybe have 1 million minority. If you go through life, life will tell you that that minority, if not handled properly, could become a problem for the majority. And that's all over the world. All over the world. When we look at what happened in Rwanda, it was minority, majority. All over the world, racism, color problems, minority, majority. We must be careful and not think that nations move by what the majority desires or wants or says. It doesn't work like that, because I tell you this story, I've been told, and I think it's a true story, about a young man who came into a lot of money and decided to buy all the houses on a particular street. And he would go to you and say, I want this house. How much is it? Well, it's been valued at 1 million. He says, I give you 2 million. And of course, you take it because the value is 1 million and you have 1 million extra. And 1 million is 1 with 6 zeros. It's a lot of money. And he did that, and one by one, he bought every house on that street. And then there was one final house. He knocked on the door, and there was a very old man. And he said to the man, sir, I have almost bought this entire street. I want to rename it. I want the house. How much is your house? And the old man said to him, young man, this house is not for sale. He said, I've just bought every house. How much is it? But let me know the value. He said, well, the value is 400,000. He said, I give you 4 million. The man said, no. He said, 10 million. The old man said, no. He said, 40 million. The old man said, no. And while he continued adding, the old man said to him, young man, let me tell you that this house is not going to be bought by you, so that you will learn the lesson that when they are talking about the history of this street, you cannot say it is your own. You'll have to say it's you and I that own it together. I believe we must do what is right, stand for what is right, and definitely those who are tasked with any kind of work, particularly in terms of the Constitution, the CRC, must remember that they must be neutral. They must be neutral. Theirs is not to interpret. They must be neutral. If the nation feels a judge is taking sides or a referee is not neutral, is partial, then they cannot do their work properly. And so let's keep our neutrality so we keep our nation together. I believe that secularity must not be implied. The issues that are key to us, we must say them as they are for posterity. I would love to serve in a place where later on in the future, I will not be called to say that place is on fire. People have died. This has happened. People are angry. The place is ungovernable. But while I had the opportunity to make it right, I pandered to either vote populi or to some international organizations' theory and ideology of how my country should go. And so I'm going to stop here in my part 3 and part 4, which would be the penultimate, the final part before we talk about Christmas. In everything, let's put people together. You cannot have a family of 5 and the parents just show love, great love to the 4 children because they feel, after all, 4 out of 5 is about 90%. We must not do that. The national anthem is the common good. We are one people, and whatever is trying to divide us, we have this time to make sure it doesn't happen. And posterity stands to judge us in a few years' time on whether we did what is right or what is wrong. Until I come your way next week, by the grace of God, these are my thoughts, and I pray especially for those of us who speak and everybody hears, that we will not speak foolishly, but speak with wisdom and speak as unifiers and not people who divide. Have a good evening, and God bless us all.